For this tutorial, I'm going to be using Hobby Lobby's I Love This cotton. This is a size 4 worsted weight cotton in the color ivory. It is 100% cotton. I apologize for choosing such a light color for this tutorial. I tried to keep the brightness down so it would show up better. I'm also going to be using at least a 5" by 5" piece of vinyl leather. It's faux leather and it's $4.99, but it goes on sale every other week at Hobby Lobby. You're also going to need a 3.75mm hook and a 3.5mm hook. You're also going to need a 3.3" or 8.5cm kiss clasp, some embroidery thread to match your yarn. That's what I'm going to sew it to the clasp with, and then embellishments of your choice. I might use this, I might use some beads, just whatever. These are the beads that I'm looking at using. So I have these templates for you in the description box, and one template, the larger template, is for the base of the coin purse. So this right here, and it has these little dots on it, and that just represents where you need to make a hole around the perimeter of this piece of faux leather so you can crochet into it. And then I also have a smaller template, and this is for tracing around if you have a rotary skip blade. So this is the one I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to trace around that smaller template onto the vinyl. And you're going to need a Sharpie or some sort of marking pen. And you can change up the embellishments. Here's one I made using some leather cording and a 12mm bead. I got the leather cording from the jewelry section at Hobby Lobby. Just get creative. And then here's one that I just chained a chain and added 2 little 8mm beads to the ends. The sky is the limit with these things. So go ahead and grab the larger template and place it on your vinyl sheet, and then just cut out a square just a little bit bigger than that circle. And then you're going to take your marker and just trace around it onto your vinyl. If you don't have a rotary skip blade, you could use a really sharp needle to poke holes through. But if you do have a rotary skip blade, which is what I'm going to be using today, grab that smaller template and place it in the center, and then I'm just going to trace around it. You have to be really careful because you don't want to make your holes too close together, and you don't want to make them too big by putting them too close together, if that makes sense. So I'm just going around the perimeter here very, very carefully, trying to make sure that I don't have extra holes or making sure that they're not too close together. I cut it out of the film, but several times I looked really, really closely to make sure that I am getting the holes spaced apart correctly. So if you look closely, this is what the holes look like. They're just little tiny slits, and they're just the right size to crochet into. So now we're going to cut this out. So with the right side of the vinyl facing and your smaller hook, we are going to join in any hole of our template here. We're going to chain 1 and put 2 single crochet in each hole around. Now that's assuming that you have 22 holes. If you do not have 22 holes like there are on the template, then you will have to get creative and add some stitches in some of these holes. In fact, I did not have 22 holes, I only had 21 holes. So I had to add a 3rd single crochet in 2 holes of my base here. You literally cannot tell, so it's no big deal. You just want 44 stitches at the end of this round. So you may have to add a few stitches here and there. I do recommend that you space them out if you have to add an extra stitch. So in other words, don't put 2 stitches together that require 3 single crochet. So you want 44 single crochet regardless of how many holes you have, and you may have to put 3 singles in a few holes to achieve this. So now we're going to join with an invisible slip stitch. You're going to take your working tail to the back of your work. You're going to take your hook out of your working loop and insert your hook from back to front in the very first single crochet of the round. Grab your working loop and draw it to the back. That's it. Now you're just going to continue on as usual. But first, we've got to switch this hook out to our larger hook. We only use the smaller one just to fit in those holes. So go ahead and upgrade to your 3.75mm hook. Now we're going to chain 1, and working in the back loops only all the way around, we're going to put 1 single crochet in the back loop only of every stitch. So again, you should just have 44 single crochet at the end of this round. As you can see here, it makes a nice little edging. So just continue doing that all the way around. So we're going to use the invisible slip stitch again. Move your tail to the back, insert your hook from back to front. Grab your working loop and draw it to the back. Now we're going to be working through both loops this time, and we're just going to put a single crochet in the first 2 stitches. We're going to begin our stitch pattern, and we will be repeating the stitch pattern once, so pay close attention. Now we're going to put a treble in the next stitch. That's yarn over twice. Insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up 1 loop. Yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. Yarn over, go through the next 2 loops. And then yarn over 1 last time and go through your last 2 loops. That's called a treble stitch. Now we are going to put a single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and we're going to push the post of that treble crochet outward. This is going to make a nice little texture. So see how this post is sticking out? It's going to make like a little raised bead almost. So we're putting 3 single crochet following that treble. Now that we have 3, we're going to do another treble. Again, we're going to follow that with 3 more single crochet. So we're going to poke that post outward. And don't worry, if you can't get it to cooperate, you can always grab it with your fingers and pull it out. So now we have a treble followed by 3 singles, so we're going to do another treble. You should see the pattern forming here. You are simply going to make 3 single crochet followed by a treble crochet all the way till you reach the last stitch. See how this one's not poking out? I'm just going to push it out with my finger. So again, you're just going to repeat that all the way around. You're going to do 3 single crochet followed by a treble crochet until you get to the last stitch. When you get to the very last stitch, you're just going to make 1 single crochet, and then you're going to do your invisible slip stitch. I forgot to show you on the camera doing the last single crochet of the round, but don't forget to do it. You should still have 44 stitches. Now we're going to chain 1, and working through both loops again, we're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So again, you should still have 44 single crochet. So just repeat that all the way around. Now we're going to join with an invisible slip stitch. You're going to be joining with an invisible slip stitch throughout this entire pattern. This helps hide the seam really, really well. Now this is our second round of our stitch pattern, so pay close attention. You're going to chain one and then make a taller chain. Now we're going to make a treble stitch in the very first stitch, the same stitch that we joined in. Now we're going to push the post forward, just like we did before, and single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Now we are going to treble crochet again. Push the post forward and make a single in the next 3 stitches. And again, another treble. So it's the same stitch pattern, you just start off differently so that the treble crochets are staggered slightly. And that gives us this nice little pattern here. So just continue doing that all the way till you reach the end. You should end on 3 single crochets, and we are going to join with an invisible slip stitch in that taller chain that you created. Now we're going to begin round 6. This will be our last repeating round. You're going to do a single crochet in every stitch of the round. So we have 4 repeating rounds. 2 of them are stitch pattern rounds and 2 of them are just a single crochet in every stitch around. So after every stitch pattern round, we do a single crochet round. So we're going to join with an invisible slip stitch. And now we are going to repeat rounds 3 through 6 one more time. So now that we've done a round of single crochet, we are going to repeat round 3, 4, 5, and 6. So when you're done, you should have 4 of these little raised dots here of those treble crochet. So repeat rounds 3 through 6 one more time, and I will meet you back here. So here I've done rounds 3 through 6 one more time, so you should have a total of 10 rounds. And here I'm just counting them to show you. Plus, of course, don't forget this first round here. Now we are going to chain 1 and single crochet in the back loops only of each stitch around. This is going to create a sort of edging. So just continue doing 1 single crochet in the back loops only, all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. So here we are at the end. We're going to make our invisible slip stitch. And now we are going to work through both loops again. We're going to chain 1, and in our same stitch that we joined in, we're going to make 1 single crochet. Now we're going to chain 1 and skip the next stitch. Single crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet. You're just going to repeat this all the way around until you reach the last stitch, and I'll meet you there. Here we are at the end. I've got a single crochet and a chain one, and we're skipping the very last stitch. Now we're going to join with an invisible slip stitch in our very first stitch of the round. Now we're going to chain one, and we're going to put one single crochet in every stitch and in every space around. Again, you should still have 44 stitches. We have not decreased or increased in this stitch pattern. So just continue putting one single crochet in every stitch around. I'm going to join with an invisible slip stitch. And now we are going to repeat the last round 3 more times. So for the next 3 rounds, you're just going to put a single crochet in every stitch around. So here I am at the end. We're going to join with an invisible slip stitch. And now we're going to fasten off and weave in our tail here. So go ahead and weave in this tail and I'll meet you back. So here we have our change purse for the most part ready to sew to the kiss clasp. But we are going to fold it in half and add our front embellishment first. So I'm going to use that leather embellishment that I chose to match this, and I'm going to put it in those chain one spaces. The rule of thumb that I use, and it gives you a little too much, but I just wrap it around 3 times. But you probably could do 2 times, 2.5 times, and still have plenty. So I want this seam here to be on the side, so I'm going to make sure that that's on the side. And then there should be 11 chain one spaces if you followed the pattern correctly. So we are going to start threading our embellishment in the 6th chain one space here. So I'm just going to insert it there, and I'm going to weave it in and out of these chain one spaces all the way around until I come back to where I started. So I'm just going to show you a few of them, how I get it in there, and then I'm going to meet you once I have it done so you don't have to watch me. So here I have it finished. I was going to tie it in a bow, but it doesn't work out with this material. So instead I just tied it one time and then did a square knot, which is actually macrame, but it's super easy. Just watch me carefully. One square knot is actually 2 steps. And then once I am happy with how it looks, I'm going to cut the ends at staggering lengths. And that's what it looks like. I think it's super cute. Now we need to make sure that our embellishment is centered, and we're going to fold it in half and mark each end. And this is just going to help us know where to sew when we are sewing it to the kiss clasp. So this isn't necessarily necessary, but I think it's helpful to make sure that your embellishment is in the front and center. So once you've marked each side, you're going to grab your kiss clasp and open it up. These kiss clasps have like a little loop here that you can add like a keychain or a tassel to. So decide where you want, if you are going to add tassels, where you want it. So do you want it on the left or on the right? And I want it on the right, so I'm going to attach it this way. And I'm going to do another step. You don't have to do this, but it does help you do it more straight. So I just cut 2 pieces of yarn. I didn't measure it. And I'm going in the marked stitch here, and I'm going to grab the yarn and actually tie a piece of yarn around the sides to hold them together. If you don't put a front embellishment on this and you don't have like an actual front or back, then this step is probably not necessary. But if you do put a front embellishment on there and you want it to be centered, I highly recommend doing this. And I'm going to repeat this to the other side. And this just kind of helps hold it in place when you're trying to sew it together, because it does get difficult with everything flopping around. So this just sort of stabilizes it. So I'm always going to sew on the side that has the front embellishment first, because if you do any kind of stretching of your project, you want it to be in the back. I want this front embellishment to be lined in the center. And then you're just going to grab your embroidery thread and cut a long strand for sewing. Thread one end to your needle and then knot off the other end. And we're going to start on this corner here in the very first stitch. So we're going to weave in our tail from the bottom and kind of work our way up to the area where the first stitch will be. This is just to help hide that knot that I made and to further ensure that the tail doesn't come out. So now we're just going to go out that first stitch in that hole there. This can be a challenge because you have that stitch marker and that bow. It's still worth it to me because it helps hold your stuff in place. We're going to go in the next hole. At sort of an angle, you kind of want to go downward with your needle. And now to make it look better, we are going to actually go out of the same hole that we just came in, but we're going to go in a different spot so we don't take out the stitch we just made. So here's where we came out, so I'm going to go in here and come out the same hole that I just entered. And then I'm going to go in the next hole. Make sure that your piece is pushed up in there real good. We're going to go kind of at an angle. And then, of course, we're going to go back out that same hole in a different spot. This just makes it look nicer. So now's a good time to put your piece inside the little ledge there and make sure that your front embellishment is lining up to the center. We're going to go in the next hole. And then we're going to come out that same hole in a different spot. So you're just going to continue doing this until you reach the opposite corner. And when you get to the corner, I'm going to show you what I do to further secure this to the kiss clasp. So just continue repeating this process until you reach the corner, and I will meet you there. So now that we're at the corner, I'm going to remove this tie and stitch marker, and then I'm going to show you how I reinforce these side stitches. So you're going to be going in and out of the same holes on these corners quite a bit, because if you don't, it's bound to get too much stress and rip. So here I'm just showing you that I'm going in and out of the same stitches several times to reinforce these stitches. So now we're just going to continue working across this side. And I went ahead and removed the stitch marker and the tie on the other side, because now that we have a side sewn down, we don't really need it. This isn't going to go anywhere. So now we're just going to go out the same hole. And then go in the next one. And then out the same hole in a different spot. And in the next one. And just like we did on the other side, we're just going to repeat that all the way to the other corner, and then I'm going to show you how I reinforce the other corner. So I will meet you in the other corner. So here I am at the end. I'm going to do like I did on the other side, only I'm going to reinforce where I started as well, because I didn't do that at the beginning. And honestly, I wish I would have reinforced it even more than what I'm showing you here, because these corners get a lot of stress on them. And you really don't want these stitches to break, because then you'll have to sew it on there again. So now I'm going to weave in my tail before I knot it off, just so I can get that knot away from the top. So just kind of do like you do whenever you're weaving in your tail with your yarn. Then once you get it down far enough, I'm going to knot off the end a few times just to secure it. And then once you're satisfied with your knotting, I would weave in your tail again. And now you're just going to cut off the excess. And you're pretty well finished with your pouch. I'm going to add some tassels, like I said, some beaded tassels on the side, where that little hole is on the side, and I'll meet you back. So I used the leftover matching embroidery thread that I had to make my beaded tassels. Probably going to add some furry check to the bottom, but you could really just do anything. And this is what it should look like. And you are done. Your posh pouch is complete. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.